have about 10,000 global employees and did about $3.2 billion in annual revenue in 2015. So I work with the Citrix enterprise team, not the Citrix online team where GoToMeeting and probably the brands you're familiar with. So at Citrix, I'm part of the web marketing organization. I love being a part of this team. We're super data-driven and an agile marketing team. And the thing I love about that is that we all understand why we're doing the work we're doing, right? So no one's sitting around frustrated saying, why are we working on this project, or what's the point of this? We all know because we're using that data to really understand the value that a project can bring, to determine the priority of the projects and make sure that we're working on something that's gonna really drive results for the business. We also are using it to quantify the impact, right? So understanding if we work on something, what the results could be, and then also using data to guide our actions. So being able to iterate and make sure that we're moving forward in the right direction. So what does it mean to be data-driven? So I have this old stat, right? It's from the Harvard Business Review in 2012, so it's old, right? But I think it's telling that as recently as a few years ago, marketers were admitting to depending on data for just 11% of customer-related decisions. Because without data, it really boils down to you're relying on instincts, opinions, guessing, what you think might work. Whereas with data, you're really able to use evidence to create targeted, really effective experiences, accelerate buyers through their journey, and demonstrate value to the business. So thinking about how to identify metrics that matter, this seems kind of obvious, right? But it's really about understanding how your content aligns to the journey stage and what your user is trying to do at each stage of the journey. And then always obviously outlining your goals and your KPIs at the outset of a project. So don't wait until you're halfway through a strategy to think about what am I trying to achieve here. So I have some examples around what your user's goal might be at each stage of the funnel and the type of asset that can be valuable for them. So top of funnel users are really looking to educate themselves, right? So an example of a type of asset that might help them do that is something like an industry guide, where they can really get a broad sense of where the industry is. Mid-funnel users are trying to compare different solutions, so something like an analyst report can help them complete that. And then bottom of the funnel users looking to decide and really understand what their next step is, something like a product demo can be really valuable for those users. So I have a case study here, but no image. Okay, imagine if you will. We did this case study around interactive content where we were trying to understand, does interactive content increase conversions? So this was a true kind of A/B test where we took a comparison asset that was a 10-page PDF. So there was a picture of said PDF here. 10 pages of straight text. We created a variation of it that was an interactive web page that was integrated into our website. So it had our navigation and the sticky calls to action. There was streamlined content. It was very visual. And the goal for this particular piece of content was to convert users to a trial. So I was going to do a witch test 1, but since you can't see the pictures, I will just go straight to the results. Oh, hey, there they are. So there's my original 10-page PDF. There's a sample of what my interactive page looked like. So anyone want to guess which of these converted to a trial better? Interactive, you would think, right? Well, our test was inconclusive. And there was a very negligible difference in the conversion rates between the two pages. And in fact, the variation, the interactive content, had a slightly lower conversion rate. And one of the top actions on that interactive page was for users to go download the original PDF. So, the users really wanted all of that content. And so what we really realized here is that at this stage of the journey for what these users are trying to accomplish, that interactive content was just not successful. And that proceeding down this path with these assets was really not a good way to deliver value. But in terms of next steps, we are going to continue testing interactive content with other types of assets at other journey stages to see, how can we make this work? Because we do think it has the potential to be very successful. So takeaways from this case study, the first is that really everything is test-worthy. So even a no-brainer tactic can provide valuable insights. We really thought we had a home run with this test. We were like, how could anybody not think that the interactive experience was better? It had all of these ways for users to engage with the content and to really be able to understand the value that our solution delivered over the competitor. We thought this was a home run. So it was really interesting to find out that that was not the case. Another takeaway here is really around piloting and measuring first. And it's really kind of that MVP, minimum viable product kind of concept. So when we first started talking about utilizing interactive content on the website, we had grand visions, all of these widgets and surveys and calculators, all of these things we could do to really engage our audience. But if we had proceeded with that plan, we'd probably still be in development. So instead, we thought, what is the minimum viable product in order to test this and understand if it's going to work before we invest additional resources in it? And by getting that data at the beginning of the project, before we had committed that time and those resources, we were able to understand whether it was going to be effective. And then finally, communicate results. So even inconclusive results, which kind of feel like a bummer, can provide beneficial learnings for your organization. And interactive content was something that different marketing teams throughout Citrix were interested in. So by exploring the results that we had with those teams, we were really able to kind of spread the wealth, so to speak, about the results we had. Okay, so second case study is around PDF optimization. The idea here was, can we leverage existing assets to drive improved performance? So on Citrix.com, we have a substantial number of PDF assets. And they were kind of an afterthought, right? So product marketing teams were creating data sheets and comparison docs and all kinds of product assets, and they weren't really part of our optimization strategy. And truthfully, the web marketing team wasn't really even looking at them that closely. So there were a lot of opportunities to improve their performance. And we did a lot of testing around PDFs, not all true A/B tests, although we did do some A/B tests. Others, we just did some benchmarking from an organic perspective. How are things ranking? We made some optimizations, and we reevaluated. So some of the updates we made were things like content and format, the call to action language, the placement, the treatment, and organic optimization, like I said. Thankfully, these results were not inconclusive, so we had really great success with this project. From the initial pilot, which like I said, we ran a lot of tests, but some of the examples of the types of results we saw were things like an almost 60% increase in click-through rate from the search results page, an over 200% increase in click-through rate on our calls to action. So we began the rollout of optimizations based on these results, right? But the project wasn't a top priority. Now, it sounds like, how can it not be a top priority? You had great results, right? But it just, when you're competing with so many other projects and things that are bigger impact or have higher visibility, it's hard to say, wait, slow down, let's optimize our PDFs. But we were able to kind of double down on our data when we saw, using DataCube, that these PDFs were having increased visibility in search results. So you can see the stacked trend line there from DataCube showing kind of the spike in visibility. We were able to use this to really help our stakeholders and our internal teams understand that this had a bigger impact now than when we first evaluated it, and be able to gain internal buy-in and prioritize it higher. So some takeaways here. One is to be sure you're leveraging existing resources. Using assets that you already have in new or unique ways can add value without requiring substantial effort. And looking for that kind of golden ticket, the high impact, low effort opportunities. So a good place to start is assets that you have that may have high search impressions but a low click-through rate, or assets that have high traffic but low conversions, things where minor modifications could give you big results. And again, some examples of the things we tested were the CTA language, or the placement within the PDF documents, repurposing the content into different formats, and optimizing the PDF like any other part of the site. Another takeaway here is quantifying the impact, so providing that context for stakeholders and helping motivate action. And then finally, be proactive, so being able to constantly evaluate your results and then refine your approach if you get new data. So I'm going to talk briefly about sharing data cross-functionally. So obviously Citrix is a big organization. I know a lot of you work for big organizations as well. And it can be challenging to let stakeholders or other marketing teams understand what your strategy is, what your results are, and how they can help. So these are some of the ways that we do that at Citrix. One is cross-functional dashboards. We utilize the BrightEdge Story Builder templates, and we include the custom module in our reports to show monthly action items that give context to the results we're seeing. So in my networking campaign dashboard, I'll outline the activities we completed that month in order to boost SEO results for networking, and then explain how those actions impacted the results that we saw. We also have a Center of Excellence, which I've heard a couple speakers talk about today. And that's really all around providing our stakeholders this centralized place where they can get education and find enablement tools and really help engage them so that they're able to support our strategy. We utilize the corporate internet to publish articles about our results or changes that we're making to our strategy so that everyone across the organization understands what we're doing and the value that we're bringing. And then demos and roadshows really have to be a champion of your data and your results to help elevate SEO and the content conversations in your organization. So this is everything from lunch and learns to attending other teams' kind of quarterly business reviews and just helping bridge those silos within your organization. And then I have a basic framework here for scaling results, especially when you're talking about piloting something with a small project and being able to scale it across your organization. One is to be sure that the work you're doing is going to be actionable. So before you get started on something, understanding if the results are positive, how will we be able to act on them? What are the goals? What are the next steps if it's successful, and the potential blockers that you might see? Is it repeatable? So can you leverage it for other content or other projects or in other areas of the business? And a great way to do this that we found is piloting or prototyping something before fully developing it so you can understand if it's going to be successful, and then only rolling it out once it's validated by data. And then finally, making sure that it's documented. So will other team members know how to put it into practice by understanding what the key takeaways from your work and your testing were, and understanding the best practices that they need to follow in order to implement. Thank you.